Hi, it's Martin here with a video on how to do the second assessment from the core part of the course. So we're going to start off with the first question, which is to factorise completely the following expression. Now, I think most people managed to get the first mark by noting that x was a common factor. So if we take x out as so, okay, that at least got you 1 mark if you could do that. Be careful not to switch the 4x squared and the 1 around, because if you do that, the only way you can do that is if you take out a -1 as a factor. Okay, it's not an equation, it's not like we can just times both sides by -1. We have to make sure we take out the appropriate factors if we're going to change the signs inside the bracket here. So, leaving it like this, one thing we need to notice that this is actually in the form a squared minus b squared, okay, which you may have heard before as the difference of two squares. If that's something you're unfamiliar with, then difference of two squares is a topic you should look up. Okay, what difference of two squares is, it says that I can write a squared minus b squared in the form a minus b in a bracket and then a plus b in a bracket. Okay, and it might not look like it, but actually our 1 minus 4x squared is actually in this form a squared minus b squared. What I need to do is I need to find out what happens when I square root the 1, and that will be my value I use for a, and also what happens when I square root 4x squared, and that will be my b. Okay, well the square root of 1 is just 1, so let's put that in there. And then the other terms that are going to go in the bracket, as I'm going to put a minus 2x in here, because the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of x squared is x. Because this is a minus 4x squared, in the other bracket I'm going to have the positive 2x, because when I do minus 2x times positive 2x, I get the minus 4x squared. The 1 times the 1 gives me the 1, and the minus 2x times 1 and the positive 2x times 1 will both cancel each other out. So this is why you need to use the difference of two squares approach, so you can get the rest of, you can factorise this fully. Okay, so when it says factorise completely or factorise fully, it means you have to go as far as you can with it. Okay, only leaving it like we have at the top will only be good enough for 1 mark. So on to surds now, and this is a rationalise the denominator question. A lot of people try to times both top and bottom by root 5 minus 1 over root 5 minus 1. So what we actually need to do is make sure we times by root 5 plus 1, and whatever I do to the denominator I've got to do to the numerator as well. Okay, because essentially timesing by this is like timesing by 1, it's just a more manipulative way of doing so. And it's a bit like using the difference of two squares that we just looked at a minute ago, except for rather than have a squared minus b squared and try to factorise it, we have an a minus b and we're going to times it by an a plus b to give us a squared minus b squared. And what this will do is this will eliminate any surds on the bottom of the fraction. So let's see what this gives us. Now think of it like two brackets on the top here. I've got 7 plus root 5 in the bracket, and I've also got root 5 plus 1 in the bracket. So expanding this out, I do the 7 times the root 5. I do the 7 times the 1. I do the root 5 times the other root 5, and that will just give me a 5. Okay, Remember, the root of a times the root of a just gives you a. The square roots are removed. And then the root 5 times 1 just gives us root 5. On the bottom, we've got root 5 times root 5, which is just 5. The minus 1 times the root 5 and the positive 1 times root 5 will just cancel out. That's the reason why we're timesing it by root 5 plus 1. It's because we want to get rid of those surds. Finally, I've just got minus 1 plus 1 to times together, which is obviously just minus 1. So then collecting all the terms on the top together, I'll have 8 root 5 plus 12. On the bottom, I've just got 4. Okay, and this is the majority of your marks right here if you've got this far with this question. All that's left to do is just divide the 8 and the 12 both by 4, because 4 goes into both of those. So 8 divided by 4 is just 2. So I'm left with 2 root 5. And 12 divided by 4 is just 3. Or if you like, that's just same as 3 plus 2 root 5. So I've got it in this form that I was asked to. And also a and b are both integers. Okay, so if you look at what you had here with the fraction, okay, that's not good enough for this form, so you need to make sure that you've divided through by the 4. Also, make sure you divide both terms by the 4. Don't just divide the 8 by the 4, make sure you divide the 12 by the 4 as well. So this next question, we've got 8 to the power of 2x plus 3. We've got it in the form 2 to the power of y. We're asked to put it in this form with stating y in terms of x. So at the moment we've got an 8, but we need to have 2 to the power of something. So think about what 8 and 2 have in common. Well, 2 to the power of 3 is just the same as 8. Okay, 2 to the power of 3 is just the number 8. Okay, so when you've got to try and put it in a certain form, think about how you can rewrite your expression into that form. So this 8, or 2 to the power of 3, is risen to the power of 2x plus 3. So just replace the 8 now with the 2 cubed. And just remember the bracket law is you times the powers together. So it will just be 3 times 2x plus 3. Okay, make sure you times all of that 2x plus 3 by the 3. So that's why I put it in the bracket there. And then just expand that bracket out. So times everything by that 3, all the terms side there, times that by 3. So now it's 2 to the power of something, which is the term I wanted. So y is just the power, which is 6x plus 9. Okay, on 4a, when we've got something risen to the power of 5 over 3, what we have to do is find the root of the number on the bottom of the fraction. So in this case we have to find the cube root of 8. So that's just a number that when you times it and times it again, it gives you 8. That number is just 2. And then the number on the top of your fraction tells us what power you have to raise that to 2. So we have to raise 2 to the power of 5. So that's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which is just 32. 4b. So 4b was a little bit harder. Quite a lot of people struggle to deal with the top of the fraction here. 2x to the power of a half. Another way of writing that, if you wrote that out in longhand, that would be 2x to the power of a half times 2x to the power of a half times 2x to the power of a half. Now I wouldn't recommend in the exam writing it out like this, but I'm just showing you this way so you can see why we get the result we do. So looking at the numbers, well, 2 times 2 times 2, 2 cubed is just 8, and then dealing with the variables, I've got x to the power of half times x to the power of half times x to the power of half. Remember, you're going to add those powers together there, which will just be x to the power of 3 over 2. So in all, it'll be 8x to the power of 3 over 2. Just remember, when you've got this all in the bracket, it means you have to cube both of these terms. So cube the 2, the 8, like we got here, cube the x to the power of a half, and so you just times the powers there. 3 times a half is just 3 over 2, and that's how we get the following result. The bottom fraction, we just have 4x squared. So we'll get some credit for doing that. What we now need to do is just to simplify this fully. Deal with the numbers first. 8 divided by 4 is just 2. Then we've got x to the power of 3 over 2 divided by x squared. So with dividing powers, so remember when you've got your fraction, you're dividing the powers, you're just taking them away. So we're doing 3 over 2, take away 2. Now another way of writing the number 2 is to say that's 4 halves. So if we do 3 halves, take away 4 halves, that leaves us with minus a half. Okay. Alternatively, you could write that as 2 over root x. Okay, but either way is fine. So some inequalities now. Most people did okay with part A of this question. You just need to expand the bracket on the left hand side out, then just get all your x's onto one side. If you take 8 from both sides, so all we've done here is just add x to both sides, and we've also took 8 from both sides. Then just divide both sides by 7, and we just get x is greater than minus 1. Most of that question was answered quite well by people. Just make sure you are careful with your algebraic manipulation as you go along with this question. Make sure you keep your inequality signs in, and you should have had to divide by a negative number, but if you did do it in a way where you did have to divide by a negative number, maybe you took 6x from both sides and you had to end up dividing by a minus 7, just make sure you change the direction of your sign. Okay, but if you do it this way, really shouldn't be too much difficulty.